Hey guys, Hank here from Lucky's Mini Trucks. Today we're going to install a 4-inch lift kit on a Mitsubishi mini cab U62T. All right, so this lift kit on this U62T, this is a mind-blowing kit. Awesome kit. Let me show you guys why. So normally on a kit like this on the front, you know, because we're doing a 4-inch lift kit, you got to drop the subframe, add the spacers, you know, topper struts, yada, yada, yada. So let's look at this kit here. Come on over here, follow me. So this is the parts kit for the U62, the 4-inch lift kit. You know, we've got the topper strut spacers here, subframe spacers, subframe spacers, the rear leaf spring spacer. But what's really cool is normally you would just have these front spacers for a subframe, right? But with this kit, the good old engineers, Corey at Xpert, and this is the mind-blowing part about this kit. So, you know, everybody wants to put a front bumper on these trucks. So instead of having these on there, Corey there came up with this great idea. Why not build the lift into the bumper bracket? So now if you put this on there, you don't have to buy a bumper now. But if you want to add a bumper later on, it's just going to bolt on right to your lift kit. So we're going to get started. We're going to start on the back of this kit first. So let's get the parts. Hugh, you want to get the back lifted up and put on there? So a couple things we like to do when we do these lifts. And I know you guys at home, when you're doing these lift kits at home, you're probably not going to be doing it on a lift. But you do want to get a couple of little straps. What we do with these straps is because you're pulling off the U-bolts on this, so the diff is going to want to shift. So what we do is we tie it to a solid point so that you can line up the tabs once they're there, so when you take the U-bolts out, it doesn't shift too much. All right, so we're going to do the back. On a 4-inch lift kit, you know, on 2-inch lift kits, you're usually going to remove the shackle and it's just going to be a shackle replacement. But on a 4-inch lift kit, we're going to put the new spacers in between the axle and the leaf spring. So again, you know, we're doing this in the shop, so we have a lift. If you're doing this at home, it's going to be a little difficult. See, well, we got these stands here. We're lifting up the frame because we need to take the tension off the spring and also take the tire off. So, hey, Hugh, you want to go and I'll get the wheel off the, let her down. So you can see when we let it down, so at home you can just use some jack stand or something, put it on the frame. You want to lift it so that the wheel comes. So don't lift it by the leaf spring, don't lift it by the axle. Keep going, keep going. All right, good. All right, so now that the wheel's got, we're gonna take off the wheel. On this kit, we need to take off the wheels. You want to grab a 10 mil, start removing the bolts. All right, so come on to this side here. So on the 4-inch lift kit, because we're going to be dropping this down, we've got, this is your brake cable for the parking brake. There's a couple of 12 mils that we got to take off just to release the tension. Got one here and one on the back side. So here they're just going to remove those, and we're just going to leave this. We're not going to put them back on. We're just going to let the cable, this way the cable can extend. You got the other one, Hugh?
The other one's gonna need a socket.
Here.
Here, it's right here.
All right. All right, so now remember I said earlier we need to use some straps on this. So we're just gonna use these. Now, when you're at home, we wanna, the point I like to strap is just right on the bottom of the shock mount right there on factory. So on the lift, we're gonna go just to a solid point on the lift. We're gonna go right to there. So now this is just holding it in place. So we don't want to ratchet this where we have tension on the strap. You know, just enough so that when we release the U-bolts, the axle doesn't move. So if you put too much tension on it, once you release that, you're going to pull the axle back. So we're just going to put that just, you know, see, it's not very tight. There. All right. Now there's 4 14 mils on top. They're usually pretty tough, so we'll usually have to start them. If you're going to use hand tools or power tools, I usually start them with a breaker just to get them loose. And then at this point too, you can either remove the shock from the mount too. So here you want to take the shock off, yep. And that's going to be a 17 mil nut on that. You got that off? I'll let you get that off first. All right, so we got everything off, got the U-bolts off. Now this is gonna drop some. We're gonna discard the factory U-bolts. You don't need to reuse those. Now if you look at, here's the block we're going to put in. You can see there's a hole and a tab. The tab's going to go in this hole here in axle. The hole is going to go on the tab on the bottom of the leaf spring. So this is where you can tell which orientation. Obviously this is for the other side because this is the new mount for the shock. So this is the one I'll put on. So just got to line it up. And you see how we already loosened this, but see this gap here, we still can't get it through, because this cable is still holding it. So we'll move that up and just see how much pressure it relieves. So we'll get that there, get this in there. Now we gotta line up the holes. I've got that backwards. Actually, I put the wrong one on there. All right. So you see the top's lined up. And what's cool with the strap is it moved forward actually, so I didn't have enough tension on the strap, but that's okay. We're just a hair, so if we tighten on that strap, it's gonna pull the axle back and it's gonna line up that hole. So keep going, keep going, keep going. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Okay, stop. All lined up now. We're going to use the new U-bolts, get everything in place. Now the new kit's going to come. We got to get these lock washers on first with the new nuts. Just spin everything on by hand so it doesn't move down. All right, now make sure we're lined up. We can start tightening this. We're not in the slot.
There we go.
Okay. All right, so now we got this all buttoned up. So we got the block in, tabs line up, new U-bolts. Very important when you're putting these back in. You see this tab here? Make sure U-bolts are inside this tab, just like this. All right, now this is the new bracket relocation for shock because we're dropping the axle. Now before you do the CL, because we drop it on the CL, the rubber line's a little taut right there. We want to release some pressure. All you gotta do is just pull down on this bracket a little bit, just to relieve a little pressure there, and it's good. So here you want to pull down on that, just grab that and just bend her down. So there, so just bend her down just a little bit there, and just to relieve a little pressure, and that's all you gotta do. Now put the shock into the new spot with the new nut, and that's it. So just repeat on the next side, and that's the rear 4-inch lift kit on a U62T. All right, so we're gonna go to the passenger side now. I got the lug nuts removed. Here's a little trick. Lug nuts removed, see, tire doesn't want to come off. Most of these are hub centric, old trucks. They just get a little sticky. The easiest way to do it is just grab a BFH and go on the backside. Don't hit the rubber, just hit it from the backside, and usually that'll come right off. See, the little thing, it's off. You're gonna have to do this one too.
I don't have insulation like you guys, so.
He doesn't have insulation either. He's like Chinese and skinny.
Fair.
Fair.
Will you pass me that? Nope. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Oh. Way off. Here. Ratchet it. Keep going. Okay, stop. All right. Just get one side. All right. Okay.
U-bolt's not in my bottom.
Here, hold on. Let's get these on there and we'll loosen it up.
There.
All right, so you can see we got the back done, 4-inch lift, front stock. Got the nice little dragger look here, but let's lift the front. So let's show you what we gotta do for the front. So while it's still on the ground, we don't wanna lift it. We need to disconnect stuff. On the inside here, so here's what we're gonna be taking off. Go over it. Under these two caps here is 14 millimeter nuts on both sides. We're gonna take those off here while the vehicle's on the ground. Then we're gonna remove this little shield here so we can get to the column here, because we have to take part of the shaft out there and extend it because we're gonna be dropping the subframe down. So you see where this is the driver's side. We're moving these now. Depending on your truck, you know, some trucks are gonna be older, some are gonna be a little crusty. Some of these nuts might be corroded. So when you guys get in here, on this side, the far nut, just be careful because you have your brake switch right here. And if you're trying to break that loose and it goes too far, boom, you're gonna snap that. I've done that before, so just be careful. All right, so now we're gonna take this cover off to expose the shaft so we can get the shaft off. There's 3 things holding this together. You got a Phillips here and 2 plastic, you know, nuts with a flat head. So go ahead and just turn these. These are just, they screw into a metal stud that's on the bottom. And sometimes, you know, you don't want to put pressure while you're turning, because if you're putting pressure on it, it's not gonna back out. So just get it loose, and you usually can just use your fingers to start backing them out. See, so keep these, put them to the side, because we're going to reuse this when we put the cover back on. All right. All right. Get this cover off. All right. Get everything exposed before we start taking things apart. Now we're playing with the suspension here, so we got to make sure we keep everything lined up, or else when you go back to put together, your steering wheel is going to be crooked. So wherever the truck is stopped at, make sure your wheels are perfectly straight where they are. Now we have this contraption here that holds the steering wheel in place. So, you know, once we're moving down there, we don't turn the steering wheel. But if you don't have this at home, you know, you can just have someone help you hold the wheel, or use some straps just to hold the wheel in place so it doesn't turn while you're working on it. So now we got that wheel set in place, we can start removing the parts to get the shaft out. So down here, here's what we're going to remove to get it out. We've got a little lock washer here that we're going to use a flathead to pull down. Then we got this clip here that we're going to relieve pressure, slide it down, and this will relieve it from the top shaft. Then we got 2 12 millimeter bolts on the back side here, and 1 Phillips right here. All right, so let's get these two, start with these 2 12 mils. Slide that down right there, and use a pair of pliers to grab that. There we go. So that's release. So now that that's free, we still need to pull out the Phillips. On this Phillips here, on the back side of this Phillips is actually a nut. So a lot of times these are old and it's not gonna wanna come off, and you're gonna end up stripping that head. So you can see like here, trying to get it, it's just not gonna come up. So just go ahead and leave that, because this is part of this bracket here that connects to the chassis here that holds the shaft in place. Once we get this all out, we can put a 10 mil socket on the back and release that without stripping this nut. So we're done for up here now. Now we got this loosened at both sides. We're done up here. Now we still have one more 12 millimeter bolt on the steering or on the shaft on the bottom that we have to take off to release the column. All right, so the top is unfastened. Now we're at the bottom. Now, because we have to drop the subframe, again, you know, we're on the lift, so it's of course easier. If you're doing this at home, you're probably gonna be doing this on the ground. We've got to lift the body away from the subframe in order to get everything in place. So we're using these stands here on part of the body, you know, so we can lower the lift and it'll go up. So at home, what you're gonna want to do is use some floor jacks and just lift up at the jack points. If you've got those little tiny small floor jacks, you're probably gonna need some, you know, wooden blocks, unless you have a bigger floor jack, because you're gonna need to go up quite a bit. But lift up from there. Never lift up from here. Just lift up from there. So again, because we're doing things that we're taking apart the subframe, things are gonna shift. And if we hold everything in place, it just makes life a lot easier. So you're not struggling to get, you know, the holes to line up and stuff. So again, from what I've seen is when you release the subframe in these trucks, everything likes to go forward. So what I like to do is I just use another strap, put it through, hold a lower control arm here, run this one all the way back. Run this one all the way back to the old shock mount. And then just get it so it's not pulling back, but it's just a little tight. Now we want to do this on both sides, so we don't get one side, you know, both sides before you undo anything, so we don't get anything that shifts to one side or not. Let's get that side done. Again, right there. There. All right. So now that's done, a couple things we need to do. We need to, because we're dropping this down 4 inches, there's a few things we need to take apart first to relieve tension. Now it's going to vary on a couple of these depending on what year you have. 99 is going to be itself, and then 2001, and you know, that's when things start changing just a little bit. So the bracketry that holds the, you know, stuff might be just a little bit different, but just basically get on there and look to see, here's your subframe. When you drop this, what is attached to the subframe that you need to take the nut or bolt off so that the subframe can drop so you don't stretch or break a sensor. Bottom here on this one, obviously you can see this hard line here for power steering, because this truck has power steering. So we're going to take this 12 mil nut off of here and just leave it off so that the subframe can drop away from these 2 hard lines for power steering. And then there's also this bolt here, which is just a little spacer here that bolts to the top of the truck for the subframe. Take that out, discard that. And then, it's kind of hard to see, but up here you got electrical plug-in here for your 4-wheel drive. This is just a plug-in that's slid in on a little tab. So just slide it out of the tab and just, you should be able to just push the tab down and slide out. You can see that. So we want to get that out of the tab that it's secured to. So get that off and then move it to the front here. So the front here, this is your vacuum for the 4-wheel drive. The hard lines that go, there's a 12 mil here, take that off, discard that. And then there's a 10 mil on top that holds a couple lines together. You can kind of see it. It's right there. See where my finger is there? Right there. That one's really hard to get to until we drop it. So what I usually do is start dropping it, and before we go all the way, before we put the blocks in, then take that out so that these rubber hoses are not stretched. So again, this one here and that one here needs to be taken off and discarded. All right, so we've got this disconnected vacuum axle, we're going to be dropping the subframe. We've got this bracket here, the bolt here disconnected, so the subframe's free when it drops. So now there's only 4 bolts holding the subframe to the chassis. You got one here, and one back here. So now we can start removing them. There we go. So now this is dropped. Remember I talked about there's one 10 mil up here that's really hard to reach. So now it's dropped a little bit. We can now get up there and get that. See, there's tension on this line here. So we want to remove this. Let me just get a socket. Can you give me a socket and a 10 mil? All right, so let's take that out. We're just gonna let this hang. And just let this hang freely now. All right, so now everything's dropped. Remember when we were inside, we disconnected the steering shaft because we want to disconnect, because once this drops, you don't want that tension pulling down, but now it's gonna be able to slide down on the front or on the inside. So now we can take this 12 mil off to get the shaft out. So 12 mils out now, and we can slide this off the rack. So now it's off the rack. So you get this dust shield here. That's there. So just usually it's easier to go from the inside, pull off the shaft, and then just pull out. So we'll put the truck down and show you how that shaft comes out. Yeah, the boot's gotta go up. Go with it. Or pull it through the boot. No. Yeah, take the boot out. Here. All right, got it? So remember when we were inside, I told you, we were talking about getting these two out, and then this Phillips here, a lot of times hard to get out. So instead of stripping it, it's held on by a 10 mil nut in the back. So just take this off, and then a lot easier when it's out. Just take that on. Now you got that off. Save this. We're gonna need that against. So pull this out. So we gotta get the boot off. This little band here. Get that free, and then just pull the yoke through. Now you see these two bushings that fell out. Sometimes they'll stay there. These two won't be used again because we're adding a sleeve and it's bigger diameter, so they won't fit. So these two can be discarded. So now you got the shaft out here. We have to add this in place. Now the good thing about the Mitsubishi is that if you cut this, in half, if it's not perfectly in the middle, or doesn't matter where you cut it because the top and bottom is going to rest on top here, so we know the exact length that we need to add into this. So there's going to be grease there. Clean it up. So you can cut it first and then clean it, or cut it then clean it. So let's just make a cut. I like to use a Sawzall. Just eyeball where the middle is. All right, now that we got this cut, we're gonna clean it up and then we're gonna weld in a new section.
Okay.
Got it cut in half, got the grease cleaned out. Now before we weld, we can't weld over paint, of course, so you need to get the paint away from the bottom side here. These tools work. You can use sandpaper or file. Just get rid of the paint. All right, so this one's done. Here's the extension. See how this will work? The extension will go in here. You're gonna weld that. We're gonna do the same thing on the top. Clean that off before we put it, get it in there. There might be some burrs. It's a pretty tight fit, so it won't fit in there. Just get rid of the burrs, and that'll go in. Oh, still got some more burrs. So.
The burrs right there. The burrs right there.
All right. Turn off. All right, so we got it cleaned up, ready to weld. Now, orientation is see how the yoke is like this? The top, just matched up so that they're both, you know, you don't want it like this, or just matched up so they're facing the same direction, and then make your welds. All right, so now we've got this extension welded in. Just let it cool, and then we'll throw some paint on it quick, let it dry, put it aside, and we'll go put the blocks in first while the paint dries on this, and we'll put this in after we're done with that. All right, so now we're gonna start installing the spacing blocks on the subframe to the body. So we're gonna start with the rear ones. It's gonna be these cylinders, provided hardware. Very important, red Loctite. We don't want these bolts falling out. These fall out, you're gonna make some carnage. It's gonna wreck a lot of stuff, so I like to use red Loctite. First, okay, we're gonna put the rear blocks in first. That's these silver provided hardware. We already got some red Loctite on there. Just line it up. It's gonna go through the bottom and then into the factory hole, and that's the rear blocks. All right, so now we got the backs done. We're gonna move out to the front now. You're gonna say, wow, look at this bracket, it's so big. Why is it so big? Well, it's because Corey, their engineer, smart thinking. So normally you would have a block here, right, for your lift kit. Then let's say, oh, I want to put a bumper on this truck too. You got another bracket. Well, this one is an optional from Xpert. This is part of the lift kit, but it also has the bracket built in for a front bumper / light duty plow. So then when you order the kit, you can just order this, and then you can always add a bumper later on when you're ready to. So let's get this in. It's gonna, you got subframe here. This is gonna go in between the subframe. Stop. All right, so I kind of got these brackets in there just to kind of get started to show you, but I'm gonna show you how what hardware is needed. So if you look, this is a factory hole right there. This is gonna use 2 bolts. It's gonna use a factory hole, and then there's a factory hole back there as well. But we gotta get the nut, or the bolt back there. So we have to drill out this hole first. So use a unibit, drill it, make that bigger, and then it comes with the wire. Comes with wiring like here. So you're gonna take this wire that's provided. This is the bolt that's gonna go back, and when you thread this, don't just wrap it all on there, because then it's gonna follow the pitch of the thread. The wire is small enough that you can follow it, so you're following each coil. And get this, run a couple of coils. So once you get a couple coils done, bend the wire like this, fish it through, pull it out of that hole. Then you have this bolt laying down there. Line that bracket up there, lock nut on there. All right, so now we got the body pucks spaced out. We have to add the space to make up for the shock to the body. And there's where these pucks come in hand. So jack up the truck, get this away from the body. Again, red Loctite is your friend. Unless you plan on taking this off, then use blue Loctite. So this will use the factory 14 mils that you took off. I'll get that raised up. Get these caps on top of the factory struts. All right, and where's those factory 14 mils? They're inside the cap. Factory 14s. Go back on. And we'll get these nice and tight as you can because it's going to rotate. Then we'll tighten up, do the final fastening once we get the tops bolted in so the cap doesn't rotate on us. All right. All right, Hugh, you want to help me on the inside?
Yep.
You can do it by yourself, but it's always better to have someone with you. You know, we're going to run these up from the bottom up and put the bolt or the nut on the inside of the truck. So this top cap will rotate, as you can see. All right, let's get this to the right height first, Hugh. So lower the truck a little bit. More, 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 more. Just more. Okay, that's good. All right, you want to get inside? Here's the nuts. Do the far one first.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Okay, so now the caps are done. Tighten up the nut and bolt for the caps on the cab side, and then we'll finish up and tighten out the 14s that go from the cap to the strut. Yep. All right, so remember earlier we cut the shaft, added a section there, painted it, let it dry. Now we're back to put this together because we're pretty much done putting the kit on, so we got to put the shaft back in. So put the factory boot back over it. This is how it's a lot easier to do this here, leave it loose, versus in the truck. So just get this back there. And just put all this back together. And then don't over tighten it. Just get it so that it's on there. Then you'll do the finish tightening in the truck. And remember when I told you we take this off? To take this off. So when I put it back on, I always reverse it. So I put the bolt on the back side and then the nut on the front side, because when I go to tighten it, I don't strip the bolt, because when we can just use a 10 mil socket and tighten it from the front side. So I got the thread started. I don't want to go tight because we're still gonna need to rotate this to get these two 12 mils into place. So we still want this to be able to turn somewhat freely. So now this is ready to go. And just always a reminder, you know, before you put it in, this truck is pretty clean, but a lot of these trucks we see are older. There could be a lot of corrosion on the shafts, on the splines. Just clean up the splines. You can see this spline here. It's got a little rust in there, so just to make it easier to go in, just a little WD-40 on the splines. Going all these there. Now we're gonna, all right, take this over to the truck. Hey Hugh, you wanna hop in? So you can see the spline on the steering, it's a little curled. Hang on Hugh. I'm gonna spray some WD-40 on there. And just take a rag and just wipe around, just get rid of some of that corrosion. And also give it a little bit of lubrication so that it slides on easier. You really don't want to fight this when you're putting it because you could cross thread it and then you can run into some bigger issues. So I got some help. So you want to get some help, have somebody from the inside run it down. And then we're back in. There we go. See, it slid in pretty easily. All right, that slid all the way. Then we'll put our 12mm bolt back in. And again, we're gonna just get it started. Don't tighten it until we have everything fastened up on top. In the top side, it's just pretty much gonna be the top side is gonna be just a reversal of when you took it off. The shaft is just long enough to make up the difference in the gap because we dropped the sub body 4 inches. Hey.
Yeah, you can fit yours on in.
Okay, hang on.